2,000 years ago, Jesus condemned a group of men who were studying the Bible for not understanding the times. We have indicators everywhere that tell us when seasons are coming. We're looking at the signs of the time, and I can tell you this: Christ can come at any moment. The Bible gives us all kinds of markers to look for as we get closer and closer to the end times. Now, I believe we are in the end times. I think that we are like in that time period. Obviously, we have not seen the rapture of the church yet. We know that the rapture of the church takes place prior to the tribulation, and I know there's lots of people that don't agree with that. That's okay. You are absolutely entitled to feel that way, and I have absolutely no problem with anybody that views anything differently than me. But I'm going to contend for what I believe is absolutely true, and I think that we can make a very strong, almost airtight biblical argument for the fact that the church will be raptured prior to the tribulation. But as we know that we're getting near the end times, as we're getting in that day, and we're there, right? The Bible tells us the different signs to be looking for. Perhaps the most significant of those signs, besides some of the big signs that we've already been seeing, the nation of Israel being reestablished. By the way, the nation of Israel being reestablished is a prerequisite for the things to happen that we know need to happen in the end times, because without an Israel, there are no end times events, right? So the idea that the nation of Israel was reestablished in 1948 gives us already a pretty amazing sign that we are near that moment, right? We are near that time. And that's a very important sign, but it is not the sign. As a matter of fact, when we get into the details of the signs to look for, Jesus says that the generation that will see his second coming, which, by the way, the second coming should not be conflated with the rapture, right? The second coming, the very first sign that he tells us to look for is in Matthew 24, and it is the sign that is described in Daniel chapter 9, verse 27. It is what is referred to as the abomination that causes desolate. This is when the final Antichrist sets himself up in the temple and demands to be worshiped. Okay, so this is very important, okay? Now, I want to say this because this is critical. If we know that the rapture takes place prior to the tribulation, and we are beginning to see the stage setting for the tribulation, then we know the rapture has to be near. I love the illustration that one of the great ones oftentimes gives, and I do call him a great one because I love him and I absolutely appreciate him. I don't see eye to eye with him on everything, but I think he is a brilliant, absolutely brilliant Bible teacher, and I think he has his act together, and I think he is fantastic in the area of Bible prophecy. Dr. Andy Woods, I love him with my whole heart. I love serving with him. He's just a really, really wonderful guy, and I love the briefings that he does every single week. I think that they're absolutely amazing. I think that they're great. Anyway, I want to say this. The illustration that he gives, and I love it, is he says, as you begin to get near to Christmas time, right, you'll begin to see all the signs that you're there, right? Like, and the way he describes it is actually a lot more articulate than what I'm actually doing, to be honest with you. The way that he describes it is, you know, you're walking through the store and you're beginning to see the Christmas trees. You're looking through and you begin to see all the candy canes being sold. You hear the Christmas music begin to be played. You know that Thanksgiving is around the corner.
The signs of Christmas tell you that Thanksgiving is near because Thanksgiving comes earlier on the calendar than Christmas. And so the signs of the tribulation show us that the rapture is coming even faster. And all of that to say, Jesus 2,000 years ago stepped out of eternity into time to absorb the wrath of a holy God as our substitute. And the message that he has given to the church is we're not saved by what we do. We're saved by what he has done for us. I'm not saved by my works. I'm saved by his work. And all he asks me to do is to receive what he has done as a free gift And the only way to receive a free gift from God, according to Romans chapter 4, verses 4 and 5, is to receive what he has done by way of faith, which is a synonym for trust, reliance or dependence. And so anybody out there that's unsure of their salvation, we would just exhort you to put your trust into Jesus Christ alone for eternal life and the safekeeping of your soul. And once you do that, you are spared from the wrath to come, not only in hell, but spared from this whole terrible 7-year tribulation period, which will be a manifestation of God's blazing wrath.
And he's right. Thanksgiving is around the corner when you begin to see those things. And by the way, we're already beginning to see the Christmas trees coming up everywhere, folks. The decorations, all the things that you would buy to get ready to be festive concerning the season. We know that Thanksgiving is about to befall upon us, and what a blessing that is. So the idea here is that when you begin to see the signs that we know point to the stage being set for the tribulation, we know the rapture is near. Just like we know that Thanksgiving is around the corner because of all the Christmas things we're seeing, as we begin to look at the stage being set for the time of the tribulation, you have to understand and know that we are getting very close. And folks, when I say very close, I mean we are getting extraordinarily close to that moment. And it's exciting to consider the fact that all the signs are beginning to manifest. Now, when we talk about the generation that will see the second coming, like I said before, Jesus pointed out who that generation would be, and the generation that is. And by the way, the correct term is the fig tree generation, because Jesus uses the natural illustration of the fig tree. When you see a fig coming from the tree, then you know that the summer is near. Likewise, when you see this abomination that causes desolate happen, it's going to be that generation that will see the second coming of Christ. So what's interesting is we get raptured. The tribulation commences roughly from Daniel chapter 9, verse 27, that very beginning where the treaty is made strong. You have 3.5 years that go by, and we know that the final Antichrist will set himself up in the temple and will demand to be worshiped. The generation that watches that very moment take place knows that they will be the generation that will be taken up. By the way, it's interesting. Nobody is still going to know the day or the hour of even when the second coming takes place. Now, some of you might say, well, James, that doesn't make sense. I mean, my goodness, how does that work? How in the world can you say that generation won't even know the day or the hour of the second coming? Well, think about it like this, right? If you look at the moment that the Antichrist sets himself up in the temple and demands to be worshiped, we know literally to the moment when the second coming will take place. The problem is, when did he actually demand to be worshiped? Did he sit in the temple and demand to be worshiped in a private moment that nobody was aware of several weeks before he actually did it publicly? Or even the peace treaty. When was the peace treaty actually established? Was it established in the news media when it actually gets announced? Or is it established when somebody is sitting in a bright room somewhere in the back and they're actually, drinking sodas and having a conversation while eating hummus? The idea is you're not going to know the exact moment when the second coming is going to happen, because you don't know the exact moments when those types of things took place. But Christ told us, you will know that this will be the generation that will see the second coming. Now, all I have to say is this is all exciting because we are looking at the signs that are around us, and we are watching that the stage is being set for the theater of what we know is going to take place in those last days. We're watching it happen. We're watching alliances being made. We spent a lot of time talking about the geopolitics of the region. We are watching what's going on with Saudi Arabia. We're seeing what's happening in the Temple Mount. We're looking at an overwhelming amount of Muslims that are beginning to come out and say there's nothing really holy about Jerusalem. We're looking at a lot of different things that we are seeing being manifested here that are making a lot of sense for the biblical narrative. And quite frankly, all of it should be something that should be eye-opening to us. The final day is coming, and we should all be excited because it's becoming more and more obvious what's actually happening. Now, we know that there are birth pangs that Jesus talks about in Matthew chapter 24, and those are also very vital things to be looking at, right? Because we know the way birth pangs work. Birth pangs increase in frequency as you get closer to the moment of the birth of the baby. And so when we are observing the fact that we are seeing these birth pangs begin to happen and the frequency of those items are beginning to increase, then it begins to make a lot of sense. A lot of sense what we're seeing right now happening. Crime is on the rise. That shouldn't really be a surprise. It's a function of a very wicked and evil and demonic group of leaders that are in office, whether it be at the local level or whether it be at the state level. Those are things that are, or the national level. Those aren't even things that are really a surprise to us. But look at some of the things that we're actually seeing happen. The frequency of all of those evil things. Let me rehearse a passage to you that is always worthwhile going over. And I think it's important because when I start reading to you what the signs are that we know of that final time, then it begins to make sense because the manifestation of all of it is getting more and more real. It's becoming more and more obvious. So I'm going to turn over there and I'm going to read some of this to you, and it should be eye-opening. None of this should be a surprise to anybody as I read some of this, because what we see listed in the scriptures is very, very obvious, right? Look what it tells us. This is 1 Timothy. This is chapter 4. Let me read this to you. It says, "Now the Spirit expressly says that in the latter times some will depart from the faith." Now we know that that's going to happen, right? There's lots of people departing from the faith right now. Notice this: "Giving heed to deceiving spirits and doctrines of demons." Can you understand the amount of deceiving spirits that are going on right now? How much of a deceiving spirit do you have to have in order to not understand the difference between XX and XY? And y'all know what I'm talking about. How much of a deceiving spirit is it when you now walk into an establishment and there is a requirement set forth by the very laws that have been established in our country to recognize the delusional mechanisms that continue to drive mental illness? It's a contagion. And the contagion is destroying mankind. The contagion is called sin. And when it manifests itself at this level, it becomes so ugly that it's beyond the capacity of most people to understand, because we are not God. And the fact that we are not God keeps us from fully understanding the implications of the damage that this capitulation to sinful pattern is creating. So this is pretty heavy when you stop for a moment to examine this. So they're going to depart from the faith. They're going to give heed to deceiving spirits and doctrines of demons. Folks, what does it mean when it says doctrines of demons? That means, think about this for just a second. It means that doctrines will be created and adapted to that have a full rendering of all that is demonic. Now think about this for a second. When you look at the hard left and you see the things that they are beginning to stand for, you look at the alphabet mafia. Isn't it amazing how they stand on what they call righteousness? They say, we are righteous because we believe that love is the encapsulation of every kind of sexual deviation and sin that the Bible speaks about. That it's absolutely not only okay for us to do these things, but you are an ungodly and an unloving person if you actually come against the sinful lifestyle that we choose to live. Now, here's my view on the matter, And I believe this is the biblical view on the matter. And that's this. If you want to live a sinful lifestyle, you can go ahead and live a sinful lifestyle. There's consequences for that. And of course, you will bring upon yourself pain and suffering and hardship and difficulty, of course, because that's what sin does. Sin brings destruction. We know that. This is not a matter of question for us. Sin does exactly that. We should not be surprised. But my issue here is do not make a doctrine of it by which I am in essence socially crucified because I refuse to be given to that lie. That's what a doctrine of demon is. When I choose to allow myself to be given to a satanically or demonically inspired lie, and then I make a doctrine of it, which then represents a new form of righteousness because I have replaced consciousness of God in my own mind by assuming God. And then I begin to seek a lifestyle and a pattern of literally behaving punitively or acting in a way where I literally bring upon a person punitive action for not agreeing with me. That is a doctrine of demons right there. The Bible says we would be living in a world where we would see that, what the doctrines of demons are. They're everywhere. You look around, you see it everywhere. It is no longer, this is the life that I choose to live. It's no longer, don't ask, don't tell. It's no longer live and let live. It's now all about, I choose to live in this demonically inspiring way, and you are evil if you choose to get in the way of that. Folks, they're doing it with abortion. They're doing it with every kind of subject you can think of, whether it be same-sex marriage, the exploitation of children. Do you understand that they're exploiting children in public schools right now with material that is absolutely pornographic and disgusting, and yet they call it honorable, and they call you a terrorist if as a parent you choose to go to a school board and oppose the exploitation, the institutionalized exploitation that they choose to implement within the context of your child's life. That is a doctrine of demons, folks. That's exactly what it is that we're looking at. And the Bible says that in the last day we would see this. Look at this. They will speak lies in hypocrisy. That one is one of my favorite ones, by the way. Speaking lies in hypocrisy. I love that. They assume the characteristics, attributes, and roles of something that they are absolutely not. And then they use that assumption to create the lifestyle and speech of deception. We all know what that looks like. Every single one of us. Why do you think the movie stars are the best at it? Why do you think Hollywood happens to be the best at it and the political infrastructure tends to be best at it? Because they have learned to create a character that is founded in the projection of a particular image that has nothing to do with who they really are, only so that they can create a platform to lie. We see it happening absolutely every day. We're watching it happen with every single presidential candidate out there. Every single one of them are doing the same exact thing. They are literally walking in a form of hypocrisy in order to create the ideal and most perfect platform to lie, to walk in deception. That's what they're good at doing, folks. They're going to do it because that's what they do. It's evil, it's wicked, it's a doctrine of demons, and it's a pattern that they continue to follow because they use their hypocrisy to be the platform by which they continue to lie, right? And by the way, it's interesting. The level of hypocrisy that we're seeing right now on both the left and the right in this country, the Republicans and the Democrats, is beyond like my ability to even be able to comprehend to a certain level. The way that they continue to propagate their lies and then use the element of hypocrisy that they have created a major adaptation to be the subordination of the platform that continues to bring forth deception. The Bible said it would happen. To me, What I think is amazing is the fact that the Bible made it absolutely clear that we would see these types of things happening in the last day. The Bible made that clear. It told us this is exactly what you should be expecting, and this is exactly what you should be seeing. I'm mind boggled by it, folks. I'm literally blown away by it. I cannot believe it's actually happening. The Bible said it would. I don't know why I'm so surprised like this, but it's absolutely amazing. Look what it goes on to say. It says, having their own conscience seared with a hot iron, meaning they have no conviction. There's no desire for them to listen to any conviction. There's nothing there. It's all empty. Forbidding to marry and commanding to abstain from foods which God has created to be received with thanksgiving by those who believe and know the truth. In other words, you should all eat bugs and you'll all be happy. Don't eat a steak. That's bad. You're contributing to a real climate problem by doing that. It's amazing the direction that things are going. We know that that's happening, and perhaps the primary or one of the primary characteristics that we are observing right now in the time in which we live, in the end times, is the increase of anti-Semitism. We know that that's going to be the case. The Bible tells us that in the last days, we will see an increase in anti-Semitism, and that's exactly what we're seeing right now.